Hey guys, so Jill Stein was recently at a CNN town hall doing her thing, and she was talking about her education plan, and just listen to the rhetoric and the way she talks, and think about what that reminds you of.
The question becomes something as enticing as erasing all student debt begs the question. How could you ever do that? How?
So let me say first, we found a way to bail out Wall Street. And when we needed the money, we found it, including about $17 trillion worth of practically zero interest loans, which was made available, as needed. We found a way to bail out Wall Street, the guys that crashed the economy with their waste, fraud, and abuse. So my point is, as responsible adults, we need to bail out a younger generation that is held hostage in this unpayable student debt. It's terrible for them. It's terrible for our whole society, because it's always the younger generation that leads us forward to create the economy of the future and to lead the social changes that we urgently need right now.
But the concept itself, as enticing as it is, there's one apples to oranges thing here. Quantitative easing, which you've talked about, TARP, TALF, whatever acronym you want to throw at how we dealt with the banks in 2008, right or wrong, those loans, zero interest in some cases, some not, were repaid.
That's right.
So that would not erase student debt, right? Because no matter what interest rate is, you still got the principal.
Right.
So how do you do this? Because it's not going to be the same mechanism as you had with the banks, because they repaid the loans.
That's right.
And how would you ever get a Congress that wants to do nothing like this to do anything like this?
So, it was easy for the banks to repay the loans because they're an extremely advantaged and privileged group. They get the money at zero interest. They loan it out at 7%. So it's really easy for them to pay back those loans. Young people are not in that situation. They don't have the jobs that we need. We don't have an economy that can employ them. So here's what I'm suggesting. That debt is largely owned now by the federal government, the vast bulk of it. I'm suggesting that the Federal Reserve actually buy that debt like it did for Wall Street, but in this case, that it buy that debt and it basically declare that debt null and void, which essentially means that the Federal Reserve would be expanding the money supply into the hands of young people so that they can spend it into the economy instead of having to pay back the loans with their hard-earned dollars. They now own their hard-earned dollars.
If that didn't remind you of Republican trickle-down talk show form of explanation, I don't know what will. The way she explains her programs, and this is first from somebody who's going to vote for her in November, she sounds, the way she puts it is very, it's very Republican-like in the way she talks about how, when you hear Republicans talk about it, they talk about trickle down. Hers is more of a trickle up. But it's got the same rhetoric, which, in one way it can be good, because in her way it's actually the market, the backbone of the economy, spending, and not, the 1% that saves 95% of the taxes that they're given. So you hear a right-wing person talk about it. They say, we need to give tax breaks to the rich so that they can spend and invest it in the economy. And these tax breaks, like you look at Trump's original tax plan, it was a 14.6% reduction in the top marginal tax rate. Now if he wins, he wants it to be like 33%, the top marginal tax, which is still a humongous cut, the biggest tax cut since the first George Bush was in office, George H.W. And that the rhetoric that they use is that if you give the rich people money, they will spend it, which, it's not actually true. They spend they end up saving most of that money. That's why the accumulated wealth, I can't speak right now, the accumulated wealth of the top 1% is that equal to, I think the latest latest numbers was around 50%. Like the bottom 150 million Americans, and it's not just because of their income; it's because of their overall wealth. It's what they save, and it's because they save a good 95% of those taxes that they don't have to pay through tax cuts. And you think if trickle down would work, they'd spend that money, they'd spend that wealth, and it wouldn't be nearly as high. But it's because of the fact that the trickle down theory does not work that this happens. Now, Jill Stein, her idea is, let me actually explain. I just talked about this whole thing about how I was going to explain her college plan. I just went on this whole rant against the trickle down theory. But anyway, her thing is based around, and this is why I say it's right wing, is because she thinks that since we bailed out Wall Street and the auto industry, then it's now time for the richest people to bail out the millennials and the college students, the people who have thousands, tens of thousands, sometimes some people hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt from student debt. And her thing is she's going to, Federal Reserve is going to buy back all the debt and then nullify it. And people will say, that's $1 trillion that you're putting us in debt. And her idea is that, and this is another reason why I say it sounds so Republican-like, but like I said, it's trickle up, not trickle down, is that those people, those college students that don't have to, pay off that $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 of college debt, and that's the low spectrum. It's much higher than that for people who go to places like American U or, Kentucky. So that was an inside joke. But some people don't pay any for that. Fuck you. Another inside joke. But when they don't have to pay back that debt, they end up spending the money that they were going to spend on that into the economy, and the government actually makes revenue off of that because, when you pay into the economy, you pay taxes on those expenditures, and the government gets more revenue, they can spend more, and the idea is so similar to a Republican ideal, is that it's breathtaking because the Republican idea is that though we'll lose revenue, the amount of money we'll gain from the rich spending so much will counteract that. Now, her thing is similar in that it actually works because it's the backbone of the economy that's actually spending more, not the people at the top who spend maybe 5%, like 10% of their wealth, 10% of their income every year on expenditures such as sales tax and going, they pay 40% taxes, allegedly. That's not the effective tax rate, though. That's what, the top tax rate is. But other than that, you have, things on your house and all those mortgages. Most people who are rich don't usually have that. They have, but the rest of that money they're saving. So that's the whole thing. They're not spending it. And when you give them even more money, if they're not spending, say they get taxed 40%, that's 60% more that they have. Say they'll spend maybe 20% of that on maybe food and basic services. So now they have the other 40% of their income that they just don't spend. They save that, and that goes to their wealth. If they're already saving that 40%, why would cutting their taxes even more encourage them to spend more if they're already saving 40% of it? I don't know, it doesn't make sense. If they're already saving that much money, don't you think they're gonna, it's not like they're being forced to save. It's because they don't want to spend it anymore. It's because they don't have to spend it anymore. It's not like giving them more money to spend is going to encourage them to spend when they already have enough money to spend. It's not that they don't have enough money to spend, it's that they have too much money and they don't want to spend it all. See, if you take the trickle down and you change it into a trickle up, that actually makes sense, because people who don't have money, and I'm going to go on such a rant right now, you guys are going to hate me so much, but people who are on minimum wage right now, they're on welfare. Walmart, the biggest employer in the country, they're the biggest sponsor of welfare as well. They encourage their workers to go on welfare because they don't want to pay them a high enough they don't want to pay them a high enough wage. And you give these people higher wages, which every economic study has said that won't lead to job loss, won't lead to high inflation, because mainly the times when inflation rises at a higher rate is when wages are increasing higher than the economy, and that hasn't happened. And raising it to $15 wouldn't do that either way, because once again, not only that, but it would also just encourage job growth. I'm confusing a lot of people because I'm going so far off topic, but it's just so fun to rant. And when these people have this more money, they're going to spend it. The government has more money. They don't have to be on welfare. We don't have to pay as much taxes to welfare. And they could take the money they save from spending so much on welfare, divert it to something maybe like education. And then the extra income these people are making, they're either being taxed at a higher rate at that income or either one or both. They are spending it in the economy, so the government's making so much more revenue. Why can't we just have a trickle-up system, people? Why? Why do we have to be part of this trickle-down economics system that's been proven not to work? You know, I don't like everything about Jill Stein. I think she's a little too far to the left, but if she does get elected, which, I mean, let's be honest, she's not going to get elected, but if she did, most of the stuff she'd want wouldn't happen, so maybe it would be more towards Bernie Sanders' ideas. Everything else, she's pretty much lined up with him, just a little bit further to the left. But that's her education plan. I jumped so far off topic. Just because, you know, politics is so, it's not set in stone. It's so dynamic. It has so many different variables that I love it so much, but there's so many things that need to change. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like on it. Remember to subscribe. And, guys, these rants are just so great. I love just ranting. So much fun. I might just live stream a rant. I might just live stream me ranting. Universal healthcare. I could rant for that, like an hour on that shit, but not gonna do it. I need it right now. Subscribe. Bye-bye.